Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I am here to do the Reader Problems tag. So this tag was originally created by Tiffany from About to Read, and it was suggested to me on Twitter to do this by Joss from Squibbles Reads. I wasn't tagged, I was just looking for a fun tag video to do, and she suggested this, so I looked it up, I thought it seemed really fun, and yeah, we're just gonna do it. I will leave the links to both videos, channels, whatever, down below so you can go and check them out, but let's just get started because I think these are some pretty fun questions. Question 1. You have 20,000 books in your TBR. How in the world do you decide what to read next? And this is interesting, it's really based on feeling alone. Yes, I do monthly TBRs each month and I stick to those TBRs, but I try to give myself a really varied collection of books so that throughout the month, whatever I'm in the mood for, I will have a book that will fit that mood on my TBR to read. Sometimes it'll be based on a reading challenge, like I'll think about the top 16 books I need to read in 2016 and I'll be like, what haven't I read yet? How long has it been since I read it? I should read something off that list. Or sometimes it'll just be that I feel that I've read like too much of one type of book recently. Like I'll look at my list and I'll be like, whoa, I have read way too much young adult lately. I need to read some adult books. Maybe that's why I'm not like really getting into any of the books I'm currently reading, is that I feel like I've read the same thing too many times, so I've got to completely change genres. I just really try to keep it varied. I think about what I've read and I think about what I haven't read in a while, and I like to pick that up because I like to constantly be reading different kinds of books, and that helps me to really enjoy whatever I'm reading next. So yeah, I just look at my stack. Here's my stack right here currently as of filming this. I just stare at it and go, okay, which one of these feels right? Question number 2. You are halfway through a book and you're just not feeling it. Do you quit or are you committed? And this answer has changed for me just in the last year or so. Previously, I would have said, no matter what, chug all the way through it. Never just like stop in a book and don't finish it. But I have in the past like couple of years decided that that is really not how I want to do things, and forcing myself to read books that I'm hating is never a good idea because then I'm just going to be miserable and it's going to take me significantly longer to read the book. So what I do for the most part is if I'm really not enjoying a book, I set it down and I pick up another book and I read that one all the way through, and then I go back to the one I wasn't liking. And if I still can't get through it, if I still don't care, I put it down, I'm done, I don't need it in my life, I really tried, and if I'm not enjoying it, then what's the point? I'm just going, even if the end is amazing, I'm still just going to end up giving it a mediocre rating, and I'm not going to enjoy myself, and reading's about enjoying yourself. So I put it down, I set it aside, I DNF it, and I never look back. Question number 3. The end of the year is fast approaching and you are so close, yet so far from completing your Goodreads challenge. Do you try to catch up, and how? Yes, I try to catch up, but only if it is like a reasonable number of books. If I have 3 left and I have like a week, I'm gonna try to get it done. If I'm like 20 books behind, then no, I'm not even gonna bother trying to attempt that. For the most part, I want to just be like, Goodreads challenge is just a number, but if I'm so close, yes, I'm going to try to complete it because I made it through that much of the year and it would burn to come so close yet so far. I mainly do this by reading books at the end of the year that I know I can get through fairly quickly. That means by the end of the year I probably am only going to be reading young adult or maybe some graphic novels, just books that I know I can get through fairly quickly. I'm not going to be picking up like 500-page historical fiction. That wouldn't happen because that would take me forever to get through. But I just pick up easy books that I know that I'll still enjoy. I'm not just going to pick up a book because it's short. It's still about if I feel I'm going to enjoy it. The other thing that I did just in the last year was that I did a readathon right at the end of the year to get me over my number. I participated in the Holiday Booktubeathon, which is another great thing to do because you have 3 days, 3 books, and that can really affect how close you are to your Goodreads challenge. Number 4, the covers of a series you love do not match. How do you cope? If a series is totally out and has like 2 different covers, I just don't buy the covers that I didn't like. The most recent example I can think of this, honestly, is probably the Ugly series. The Ugly series got these redesigned covers that are white, and you know, they look like plastic surgery covers, and I don't really like them. And I already had the first and third books in the original editions with the models on the cover, so I didn't have the second book for years until this last winter when I found a copy of Pretties used in that original cover, and then all my books were able to match. However, if it's impossible to make a book match, and then I just kind of get over it. I'm not that uptight about the way my bookshelves look. Of course, I really enjoy when a series matches, and the cover change will always bother me, but I don't want to re-buy the entire series. That's just not something that I'm willing to do. So yeah, if I already have most of a series and then there's no way to get ones that match, I get over it. Also, I don't really care if a series has like some paperback and some hardcover. That doesn't bother me at all. I think that it shows usually that I caught up to a series and I like seeing that progression. A ton of my series are like 3 paperbacks, 2 hardcovers. The only one on my shelf that this really bothers me on is I have The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini, and ooh, there are 4 books in the series and I have 3 different editions, and that's gonna have to change in the future because it hurts me. Aragon and Eldest are mass market paperbacks, Brissinger is a full-sized paperback, and Inheritance is an enormous hardcover because I bought it the day it came out. And seeing those little mass market paperbacks next to the enormity that is the hardcover Inheritance, it bothers me. I'm probably gonna have to replace Aragon and Eldest at some point, just so I have like 2 different versions instead of 3. 3's hurting me. Number 5, everyone and their mother really loves a book that you didn't think was that great. Who do you bond with over shared feelings? Honestly, sometimes I bond with people who haven't read the book. I have a tendency to, if I didn't enjoy a book, I find someone in my life and I'm like, are you ever gonna read this? And they say no, and then I explain to them every part of the plot until they ask me to stop, or until they agree that what I'm describing sounds like a book they wouldn't enjoy. That really helps me the most. I know it's kind of silly because, you know, they haven't read the book, but it helped me. I also have a tendency to look up bad reviews on Goodreads of a book I didn't like, and I find those bad reviews, and I like them, and I comment, and we share in our opinions that this book that everyone else loved just wasn't that great. And then there are some books that no one agrees with me at all, and I just stew and slowly get angrier and angrier about it. Number 6, you are reading a book in public and you are about to start to cry. What do? 2 things you can do. 1, I put away the book, I suck in my feelings, and I do my best not to show the pain. 2, I cry. Alright, this one's a long question, so I'm just gonna read it directly off my notes. The sequel of a book you loved just came out, but you've forgotten the plot of the first book. Will you reread the book, skip the sequel, try to find a synopsis on Goodreads, or cry in frustration? And my answer completely on this varies from series to series and from book to book. 100%, I could not give you like a solid answer anyway because I've done like all of the above. The most recent thing that I did when I finished up the Princess Academy series and when I finished up the 13th Reality, those are series I've already reread when I was in like junior high, and I just didn't want to have to reread entire series over again. So I looked up synopsises, I looked up summaries, and I read reviews and hoped that that was enough to like remind me of the story and read the books again, and for the most part they did. That worked, and I really enjoyed reading the final books of those series. I used to always reread the previous books, and that depends on how long the series is, but usually I really like to reread the books, or I just jump in and hope for the best. I hope that the book does a pretty good job of reminding me of the most important parts of the previous book, and if it doesn't, maybe I'll try to find a summary. Also, another really great thing that you can do is you read the final chapter of the previous book. It brings a lot of memories back, and you're feeling a lot better going into that next one. Question 8. You do not want anyone borrowing your books. How do you politely tell them no? My answer to this is I never say no. I love loaning out my books. I love a book. If they're gonna love a book and they don't have a copy of the book, I must give them the book so that we can share in this emotion together. I'm not that uptight about my books, and this is probably because for the most part I know people who are really good with books and I know they won't damage them, so I'm just not that uptight about it. I had one person really damage a book when I was in high school, and that really bothered me, but I think he understood that should it happen again, I would be really upset. And there is really only one person in this world who is banned from ever borrowing my books, and it's because she previously borrowed a book, and she knows what she did. So she doesn't ask anymore, and that's just fine with me. Question number 9, reading ADD. You've picked up and put down 5 books in the last month. How do you get through your reading slump? I feel like this is going to be an interesting question because I don't get into reading slumps for the most part. I don't know, sometimes I'll feel like I've read a lot of really not great books in the past month, but I never, like, just don't read for extended periods of time. I'm constantly reading, and the only time that I've been through an extended period of time where I wasn't reading books was my first year of college when I was kind of adjusting to being in college. If I pick up a book for the most part, I usually finish it. I rarely DNF books because I rarely feel that they are bad enough that I'm actively like fighting against reading it. I'm just really serious about finishing books. I start a book and I read it actively every day because I want to get through it. So even if I haven't enjoyed books for a long time, I just don't get into that many slumps. When I'm starting to feel like none of the books I'm reading are going right, I usually pick up a favorite. I've said this before, but that is why I've read The Giver so many times, is that it's one of my favorite books, and it's really short. You can read it in a couple of hours, and it just kind of like reminds me of my love for reading, and I'm like, ah, that's right, and then I go out and pick up another book, and I'm usually fine after that. Question number 10. There are so many books coming out that you are dying to read. How many do you actually buy? Short answer, like maybe 3-ish, probably less, and that number has really only gone up because I joined BookTube. Long answer, I don't buy that many new releases. I just don't. I have become more interested and more invested in new releases since joining BookTube, but I'm still like not that crazy about buying new releases. I like to kind of hear what people think about the books in general first. Sometimes I like to let the hype die down a lot before I read a new book, and the only way that I would ever buy new releases, like in the past, pre-BookTube, was if it was the sequel to like a series I was super invested in and I had been waiting for the sequel. When like The Maze Runner was still coming out, when Fablehaven was still coming out, when A Series of Unfortunate Events was still coming out, then as soon as that book came out, I would go and I would buy it, but that's about it. Question number 11. After you bought new books that you really want to read, how long do they sit on your shelf before you actually get to them? This one totally depends on the book. If it is a new release that I actually purchased, for the most part, I will probably read it right when I get it because it is a new book, and it was one of those rare times, obviously, that I was excited enough to buy a new book, so that means it's probably gonna float right to the top of my TBR. But sometimes when I buy books, they sit there for a long time. Not super long because I don't generally have like a ton of books that I haven't read. I think the longest right now is I have a book at home that I've owned for over a year and I haven't read, but I'm gonna fix that as soon as I get home because that's far too long for a book to be on my shelf. But yeah, for the most part, I try to always read stuff that I bought older and newer. I try to mix it up, and they don't sit on the shelf for that long. In my opinion, that's what I think of myself. Okay guys, there you go. That is the reader problems tag. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. I feel like I don't face some of the problems that a lot of readers do. Like, I don't get into slumps, I don't overwhelm myself on new releases, and I don't buy like too many books to overwhelm my TBR, so it's just interesting to me because I don't really do those things. But I hope that you appreciated my answers, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you again to Joss for suggesting it because I really liked these questions. I hope that you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!